guys want to move a little closer? I don't want to make it uncomfortable with this. So we're all close. If you guys just want to be on this side, then just look to one side. Yeah, and whatever. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Just get that. Nice. At least everyone had a good meal when they left, which is. Yeah. Don't worry about the questions. Okay, I can turn. This fancy podium. More relaxed, I think. All right. Am I still in the streaming? The camera? Okay. Buna is going to give me trouble. All right. Okay. So I was asked to come talk about the topic of parenting, as you all know, and as I saw in the cafeteria, many of you are parents, if not all of you. And it's a tough thing to deal with and to talk about. Just by way of reference, I have 3 kids. One's 23, 21, and 19. I have to think about it. It changes every year. And I was my wife is American, and we've raised our kids, and so far no one's killed anybody, so that's a good sign. And Natalie's come over a few times, and so we have 4 kids, really, 3.5. Anyway, so I'll talk to you guys. Do you know if this will play sound, Abuna, if I have a video on here? Okay, I'll try in a bit. I'll see. So the first question is, what do we want for our kids? And I think that's an important question for all of you as parents to be very, very, very clear on. Because if we're not very, very, very clear on this question, then our actions are different than what they need to be. So, do we want our kids to stay off drugs, not marry the wrong person, don't get involved with the wrong crowd, have a successful career, etc.? Of course we want that. Okay. And the question is this the right motivation for bringing them to church? I guess the right question to ask is, why do we bring our kids to church? And are we bringing them because we want these things? And if we're bringing them because we want these things, then we have to be a little careful, right? Because now the church is the place that's going to make sure my kids are good, they're not on drugs, they don't get involved in the wrong things, they don't cuss. That's what the church's job is. Make sure they have a good career, they become doctors or lawyers or whatever. And in that case, what I really want is I want the world. Right? I want the world for my kids. I want them to succeed in the world. And when I have that motivation, then my actions are different. What triggers me as a parent is different. What scares me as a parent is different than if the motivation is truly a spiritual life for my kids. And the reason we really want to be in the church is we want to see them when we go to heaven. We want to be with our kids forever. We want to go to heaven, and we want our kids to be there with us. We want them to have a life with Christ. That's the reason we bring them to church. That's the reason we come to church. That's the reason we have kids. I was talking to a new father just a few days ago, and one of the things I told him that struck me as a parent, he was a first-time father. I said, let me tell you what struck me. Not right now, because your kid just cries and poops and it's no fun. But, like in 3 or 4 months, when the kid smiles and, interacts, you're going to be madly in love with this kid. Like right now, he's kind of a burden. Okay, I get it. But later, you're going to just be crazy about this kid. And then you're going to ask yourself, and this is what I asked myself, and I was shocked at how much I loved this kid. Because I didn't really like kids before I had kids. And I was just like crazy about this kid. And I thought to myself, does God love me this much? Is it possible that as much as I love this kid, that God loves me that much, I don't think it's actually possible. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. And so part of the reason we have kids is for us to know who God is. Because when he said, call me Father, he developed that relationship. So now as a parent, having kids isn't really about the kids. It's not like, oh, this is your duty and this is your responsibility and God gave you a kid. What are you going to do with that kid? You better bring them to church or else God will punish you. That's not it. Right? This kid is there for me, for my salvation, for me to understand who God is better, for me to understand how much God loves me, for me to understand what forgiveness is, and then for me to model myself around my dad so that I can be the father or the mother that God wants me to be. So how do we do this? How do we bring our kids to a spiritual life? And that's kind of the rest of the talk. So my goal is not to get invited back because I don't like this drive. So the objective of the goal of this talk is it's not about the kids, it's about you. And we're going to work on ourselves first and foremost because that's where the problem is. It's not your kid. And so the more I work on me, and I'll say some harsh things about you, and you won't like it, that's good, then that's where the kids get it from. So before I go, let's kind of talk about the history of Sunday school really quick. Sunday school was introduced by Nazir Gayed, Pope Shenouda, and Archdeacon Habib Gerges in a time in Egypt's history when it was full of ignorance, right? Priests were uneducated. They didn't give sermons. They inherited priesthood because their dad was a priest. It was a dark time for the church. And so Nazir Gayed and a few others, they said, you know what, we're going to get a few books, okay? Egypt has no books. We're going to buy these books, many from abroad, and we're going to put them in one central location in a library somewhere. We're all going to drive to the library or take the bus, read the book, write notes on a piece of paper from the book, and then take the notes and go from city to city and give talks. It is a basic form of information dissemination. Very basic, very simplistic. It's the simplest thing you can do, right? When you have very little resources other than a piece of paper and a single book in the country. And that's what they did. And they did it because there was ignorance. And they had to tell kids about the Bible who'd never heard anything about the Bible. And tell them about saints who'd never heard anything about saints. Well, now, we're in a different world. Right? We have Google. We have AI. We have enough resources. We could read every moment of our lives until we die, and it would not be enough time. Right? And if a kid wants to learn about anything, he can just Google St. Athanasius, and he can get a 1-page summary, a 10-page summary, a 1,000-page thesis on him, right at his fingertips. So Sunday school isn't really meant to raise kids. It's meant to just give them basic information. And not very effectively. We all sit in a circle, all the kids are talking, they're tired from the liturgy, Iskut, be quiet, hey, so here's some more bon, blah, 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 this kid touched me. It's a very bad way to disseminate information, especially now that kids are on TikTok and their minds have 4-second attention spans, right? So just that method of education isn't going to work, especially now, right? Now we have different issues. Now we have kids who are depressed, anxiety, suicidal, homosexual tendencies, thoughts about that are just kind of weird, identity issues, loneliness. This is what the kids are suffering from now. And the family is really the only solution to fix it. So the first thing I'll tell you is Sunday school is not going to raise your kids. They're not going to teach them anything. Right? If you're lucky, you'll get a servant or two over the 2 years that your kid really identifies with. And maybe make a few friends along the way. The rest of it's you. And when I say you, I don't mean you as in make sure you bring them to church. That's not you. That's just, they don't wake up for liturgy, you hit them. No, I'm not suggesting that either. I'm saying you, who are you? What do you become? What kind of Christian do they see you to be? They're going to learn more from you than that half-an-hour lesson, I can assure you. Right? Because kids are like video recorders. They're just watching you the whole time. Right? And when you ask your kid, by the way, if you ask a parent and you say, tell me about a moment when you're raising your child that was really, instrumental and pivotal for the life of your child, a moment where you really touched with your child. And they'll say, oh, I remember when she was 9, she came home and I did whatever and I was the best parent and we had a moment. Ask the 9-year-old, the 10-year-old, say, what's the best, do you remember this moment? No, I don't remember it. I don't even know what you're talking about. What does the 9-year-old remember? I remember watching mom and dad fight. I remember watching dad lie. I remember watching mom give dad the silent treatment. I remember watching them scream at each other. I remember them gossiping about other people, talking about the church. That's what I remember. Because the kids are recorders, right? So you're out there just talking with your spouse. You don't think you're having a moment with your kid. Oh, but they're watching, and they're just taking it all in. So you're on all the time. Best way to change your kid is change you. You work on you, just work on you, right? And then everything else just flows. I heard a sermon once, and I like this expression. It's in Arabic. I'll translate it, but he says, "Tarbiyat al-shirb," right? Raising your kids is just absorbed. You can't fake it one way or another. Right? You can't do the whole, I'm going to drop them off at hymns and Sunday school and blah, 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 and then I'm going to go do whatever and blow off the meeting that, Abuna puts on a Bible study during hymn class, but I'm not going to go to that. I'm just going to go to Starbucks. Your kids are going to see you coming back from Starbucks. And guess what they're going to do when they're 18? They're going to go to Starbucks. Duh. Right? So you can't fool your kids. You want to pretend? They're going to go, yeah, mom and dad pretend at church. They fake to be good people. And then, that's what kids say about their parents. That's what kids tell me about their parents all the time, right? And then the opposite is true. You almost can't mess it up. Because even if you tell your kid, you know what, whatever, don't fast. The kid will be like, yeah, but you're fasting. And I see how important it is to you. Or if you wake up early to go to the homeless shelter and you say, no, you sleep in, Habibi. I'm going to go to the homeless. You sleep in. Like, I'm not going to sleep in. I'm going to go with you. I want to go to the homeless shelter like you do, right? So the kids are going to absorb it. Sunday school is half an hour a week. Doesn't do much. So I spoke with a few youth, one in particular, who gave me 10 reasons. And I said, give me 10 things. And he's had a lot of trouble with, he's actually doing greatish. He's 26, he's okay, but he's traumatized. And I said, tell me 10 things. Tell me things that your parents did that you wish they hadn't. So one of our objectives is to keep our kids in church and to teach them the spiritual life. So I want to kind of work backwards. And there's this wonderful quote. There's a wonderful quote. I thought I had it in here by Desmond Tutu. He says, we need to stop pulling people out of the river and walk upstream and figure out why they're falling in the first place. Right? So what ends up happening is the parents do some damage to the child. And then by the time the child is 21, 22, he or she's in college, they go crazy. And then we wonder, thank you. Thanks, Abuna Bidalan. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. No, it's fine. It's good. And then they wonder what happened. And everyone says, oh, the problem is college. Because they went bad in college. College made them bad. It's the dorms. The dorms made them bad. It's the freedom. Freedom and independence made them bad. And you have to ask yourself, you have to, slow down and say, freedom is something God gives. That's a God thing, right? Freedom of will, choice. That's not a problem. God gives us that and very protective of it. So freedom isn't the problem. Freedom showed the problem, right? Because when they had freedom, what did they choose? They choose to go 180 degrees with you, which means the problem wasn't in college. The problem was in junior high. The problem was in elementary school. They do studies on kids who leave the church, and most kids decide by junior high or high school that they will leave the church when they get to 18. I'm done with this. I'm just going to fake it until my parents, because my parents are making me go. So with God's grace, let's kind of talk about some of these things that are happening. First one, sometimes there's a disconnect between religious practices and a genuine relationship with Christ. So let me just, I'll go through all of these. I don't know much to say. I'll just put them all up there. Parental influence driving youth away from the church. Unfortunately, the pressure of the parents is the thing that drives them the most away. It's because the way they make the church look, or the way they make the priest look, أبونا هيزعل منك, ربنا هيزعل منك, كنيسة هتزعل منك, and they force people to go to church in a very harsh way when they're young. Judgmental experiences and shame-based messages in the church. Lots of kids complain about being judged at church. Disillusionment regarding the treatment of women in church. This has become now an issue. There's a lot of girls now at the wedding ceremony say, I don't want them to say submit to my husband in front of my friends. Can you change that? And you're like, that came out of Ephesians. I don't know how we're going to change that exactly. But there's reasons why they want to change it, and they're important reasons. We can't just dismiss them and saying, oh, well, they're American, stupid, modern, and they drink from the thinking of the Americans, and they're bad. It's not that simple. We should be more thoughtful. Absence of relatable mentors and examples of Christ in the lives of youth. This is very important. Superficial relationship within the church and emphasis on appearances. Lots of kids say stuff like, the parents are like, what are people going to say about us? What are people going to think? How do we look in church? Perception of the church as homophobic and fostering unchristian hatred. Need for the church to address sexual issues and remove taboos. This is a topic nobody wants to talk about, and it's hush-hush and aib and all these things. And we have to talk about these things more. Church viewed as a means to an end rather than embodying Christ's presence, right? So simply pursuing the rituals of the church is success, right? Did you come to church early? Did you do all the fast? Did you do the things? Okay. Without saying, what about my relationship with Christ, right? So first one is disconnect between religious practices and genuine leadership. I'm sorry, this is in Arabic. It's Pope Shenouda, but I just love this quote, so I want to play it. Does anyone not understand Arabic? You don't understand Arabic? I'll translate. Let's hope it works. The sound on the phone's on. No, I think it's trying to connect. Is the volume on the speakers up? Well, it's not coming out of here.
الناس ساعات بياخدوا الظواهر ويسيبوا الجوهر. يقول الحل اني اصوم، اني اصلي، اني اقرا في الكتاب، اني اروح الكنيسه. كل ده كويس، لكن الحل دي ملهاش قيمه. انك ترجع لله، تكون علاقه شخصيه معاه، تكون محبه بينك وبين. الناس ساعات بياخدوا الظواهر ويسيبوا الجوهر. الناس ساعات بياخدوا الظواهر ويسيبوا الجوهر. يقول الحل اني اصوم.
The solution is to fast and pray
اني اقرا في الكتاب،
and read the Bible
اني اروح
and
الكنيسه.
go to church.
كل ده كويس.
Of course, all these
لكن
things are good,
الحل
but the
الوحيد
solution really,
اللي من غيره كل الحاجات دي
without
ملهاش
which none
قيمة
of these things have any value,
انك ترجع لله،
is to return to God.
تكون علاقة شخصية معاه.
Have a personal relationship with Christ. Have love between you and Him.
بدون هذه
Without
العلاقة،
such things,
بدون هذه المحبة،
without this love,
لا فائدة من صلاتك.
there is no benefit to your prayers or your fasting or your going to church. So this is Pope Shenouda's way of saying that sometimes we can focus on the outside and not focus on the inside, which is exactly the same thing. Oh, sorry. Which is exactly the same thing the kids are saying, is that sometimes we're distracted with you have to do this, without explaining to them the why, right? The understanding of this is a relationship with Christ, and what you're working on are things, each one for a different reason, that gets you to that relationship. I don't know why my phone has just decided. Okay. Disconnect between religious practices. Okay. So we have to focus on well, it's a matter of emphasis. So I'll give you an example, and this is a very small example. When we talk about the liturgy with our kids, when we talk about, what do we do once we leave the liturgy? How many times have you heard the liturgy starts when we leave church? I love that. Right? In fact, in the Catholic Church, they call it the Mass, and the Mass means the dismissal. So literally, they mean the liturgy is where you go to be dismissed. As some will say, the church isn't a place I go to, it's a place I go from. And so I want to leave the liturgy and then take on and be the light of the world. I just received light. I just received forgiveness. I just received mercy. I just received love. Now go and give mercy to people, forgive people, love people, take the light of Christ and go into the world. That's what the liturgy is, right? It's a time to take and then go. The analogy, I kind of was thinking about this the other day. Anyone here watch a boxing match, right? So boxing is like life. You go in there and someone's just beating you up, right? Left hook, right hook, shot to the kidneys. It's just, you go in there and you just get beat up. This is life, right? Work, marriage, kids, name it, okay? And then they ring the bell, and then you go in your corner. And then your trainer, he gives you a chair. He says, sit down. He gives you some water. He gives you a pep talk. He says, here's what you need to do. The guy's doing this, so here's a better way to beat him, and here's a better way to protect yourself. He encourages you, and he says, now go back in there and fight. The corner is church. You go in there, you receive the living water, you get some encouragement, you get some advice, you get some help, you get some refreshment, and then you go back into the fight, right? So this is how we should view the Eucharist. And when we leave church, that should be our focus. I've taken him, and I want to share him with the world like he asked me to. Give everyone the same love you just received. Now you have come and just drank from the fountain of life. Be a fountain of hope and love for all those you meet this week. So this is how I should feel when I'm leaving the liturgy. Correct? Sound good? How many times have you heard this expressed in your life? I'm 53. I've heard it expressed maybe a few times by a few people. But what have I heard more than that? Don't spit for 9 hours. Sorry, the touch is just not working. Don't swim for 9 hours. Don't chew gum for 9 hours. Don't throw up for 9 hours. Don't walk barefoot in case you get a small cut for 9 hours. Don't brush your teeth for 9 hours. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know where the source of these extra rituals are. I don't know where 9 hours came from. I don't know a lot of things. But I know that doesn't matter as much as the first 4 points. And I'm not saying we should tell kids spit. And what I'm saying is, what are you emphasizing to your kids? right? When they come home from the liturgy and you say, oh, what? Don't spit, don't spit. Really? That's what you're gonna teach, that's what they're gonna see in you? Is that being good? Is that righteousness? Is that holiness? Is that what Christ commanded us to do in the Gospels? So we have to be careful what we choose to focus on. Because sometimes we choose the things, forgive me, that are easier. It's easy to say, oh no, I don't brush my teeth for 9 hours after the liturgy, of course, because I'm a good person. But I'm going to gossip the heck out of Abuna and the church and everybody else and my friends. And I'm going to talk bad about my sister, and I'm going to say this about my cousin, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to lie to my boss. But no, I don't spit. Spitting is easy. The other stuff's hard. When I tell you, go forgive somebody, yeah, I'll forgive people, not her. I'm not going to forgive her. I'm not going to forgive him. I'm not even going to talk to him. But I won't brush my teeth. Yeah. So I pick the easy thing. Right? And when your kids see you pick the easy thing, they realize the whole thing is kind of a joke. And when they're 22, they tell you, this is a joke. You're just faking the whole thing. And you want to tell everyone how you don't eat this bagel because the 9th ingredient is Fitari. So you don't buy this brand, but you buy this brand, and they taste the same. And that's it. But you tell everyone, oh, no, I don't buy that. Oh, no, you don't buy those bagels. What do you emphasize? What are you focused on as a Christian, as a parent? And what are you teaching the kids? I'll tell you a story. This is, bad heretical story, but you know me. My son was, one time he was 14. It was Lent. It was a Saturday, and he was Arfan. So he's just pissed off, right? He wakes up one morning, and he's just like, I hate fasting. Lent sucks. There's nothing to eat. All right. So I'm like, I just kind of look at him. I go, okay, Habibi. I open the fridge. I take out 4 eggs. I scramble 4 eggs. I say, knock yourself out. He's kind of surprised. And I said, Habibi, God doesn't need you to fast. If you want to fast from your heart and offer it as a sacrifice, you can. And when you're ready to fast, you fast. But God doesn't need you to fast. Whenever you're ready, you start. Eat. And of course, he started 2 days later. Right? And said, okay, I think I'm ready to fast now. Okay, whenever. Whatever you want, Habibi. It's your will. God gave you a free will. Had I forced him and shoved it down his throat and told him why he's bad and shamed him and attacked him, he would have hated me, he would have hated the church, and he would have hated God. And that would have been the outcome of that. I would have won because I would have said, no Fitari food enters my home during Lent, and done this thing. All right? Not while I live will Fitari food enter my home. I could have played that card. Right? And he wouldn't have had Fitari food. He would have had to go sneak it behind my back, which is what all the kids do. But instead, we had a moment. Right? So we have to be thoughtful as to what we emphasize and why. And once we have a clear vision, the kids will have a clear vision. But if we're out chasing the wrong things happen. So that's number 1. As you can tell, I'm not going to get through all 9. Yeah, we're going to get through 2, maybe 3. Just as soon as you want me to finish, you just go like this, and I'll end. Once I figure out how to switch on this phone, and you guys are going to watch me lose it. Okay, next thing, parental influence driving the youth away from church. So I'll give you some advice. Don't push for studies only. Don't work too hard and spend time with them. So sometimes we think, I'm going to work very, very hard, and I'm going to make a lot of money. This is the second bullet, sorry. And then not give my kids time. Like I said, today the problem with kids is depression, anxiety, loneliness, identification. They need you more than ever. And I'll say this, they need the dads more than ever. Dads and men are kind of under attack in our country. And men are a very important part of a child's life. Their job isn't to go work and just shut up and pay the bills. Every time the man speaks, he's not supposed to be silenced by his wife and say, oh, this is toxic masculinity, and you're just teaching them the wrong things. No, men are important. Yeah, we're pretty stupid, that's true, but nonetheless, we're important. God made us this way. He made us stupid for a reason. And we have a role. In our stupidity has a role in raising the kids. And so a lot of parents have regretted, and I don't want to be alarmist, and I don't think this is a straight correlation. So please, I'm not making any inferences here, but I can tell you that every call I've gotten from parents who have a child who says he's gay or she's gay, he's gay usually, every one of them has said, my husband didn't spend much time with my son. And I'm not saying that's the only cause, because there are some gay kids whose dad did spend time with them, so that's not, 100%. But every call I've gotten has been that. And the son does not identify with his dad. His dad is too harsh. His dad is too perfectionist. His dad just yells at him, and he doesn't bond and identify with his father. Just something to think about. Both parents need to parent. It's not the mom's job. The dad doesn't go off and work. Maybe this worked in Egypt. It doesn't work here. Everyone needs to be there. It's fine. Make less money. Buy a smaller house. Don't get the third Tesla. Right? Be there together. Pass up the promotion. Each parent has a different approach. Right? Dad's more, let's get it done. Why didn't it get done? Mom's like, Habibi, I love you. Habibi, I love you. Right? Both need to be there, because we have raised a generation of very coddled kids who don't really have any expectations or push or any desire, because they don't have dads yelling at them. They just have moms be tub-tubu. And tub-tub is nice, but every once in a while, ship isn't hurt either. I'm just kidding. Now? Yeah, ship is gezma. It's spanking, corporal punishment. And tub is pat on the back. That one is almost phonetic. I mean, you hear tub, you kind of know. It's kind of like saying someone is las. It's just, you don't need to translate it. You just know, you kind of from context. Okay. Parents should agree and not use the kids against each other. This is destruction for the kids, right? Go tell your mom blah, blah, blah. That's because your dad is stupid. That's because your dad doesn't care about you. That's because your mom is not very smart. That's because don't do any of those things. Fairness between the kids as best you can. Fairness is different than equality. Your kids are not the same. They're not to be treated the same. And you can tell your kids, I am fair, but different. And that's consistent. Each kid needs something totally different, right? And so you get to tell your kids, I'm the parent, and I'm going to make the call. I am very fair, but what you need and what they need, and this other kid, is not the same, right? And you're going to have to trust me on this. Listen more than talk. This is very important. We talk at our kids all the time. And honestly, I didn't realize how bad it was because I go to Egypt a lot. I have a lot of family there, and I enjoy going there. And I hang out with my family a lot. And my cousins, who are my age, are just driving me crazy, right? And we're very good friends. I grew up with my cousins. But the way they're treating their kids, I can now relate to their kids more than I can to my cousins, right? Their kids are like 25. And they're just talking over them. And I would ask my cousin's kid something. She's 25. She can answer. And her dad answers. And I'm looking at him like, did I ask you? And he's like, man, I'm shana rogel. And it's like, what? So listen. Try to listen 10 times more than you do now. You have no idea how much you talk at the kids. Ask them questions. Get it out of them. Right? The goal isn't showing them what's wrong. The goal is getting a relationship with them. And this is the part I really want to emphasize. Just like our relationship with Christ, with God, is relational, not ritualistic like the Old Testament, our relationship with our kid has to be the same way. It's relational, right? So sometimes parents will say, what do I say if my kid says this or my kid does this? There is no way to answer this question because I don't know how your relationship is with your kid. If you don't talk to your kid, then you really don't have much to say. You don't have anything to push. In fact, if you do push, he's going to look at you and say, I'm never going to that church again. Right? So the relationship is what you have to foster. Focus on that before anything else. Right? It's better than you being right. Let them make a mistake. Ask them what they think they should do. There's a wonderful story about Abuna Bishar Kamil and Abuna Lo'a. And Abu Nalo'a was a new priest. And he told Abu Nabshar Kamil, who was a more senior priest, he said, oh, by the way, I'm going to go to this family and I'm going to tell them blah, 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 blah. They want me to visit and this is what I'm going to say. And Abu Nabshar Kamil said, oh, okay, go ahead. So he went. And then Abu Nabshar Kamil the next day said, how did it go? And he said, went miserable. They got very defensive. They attacked me. They were very blah, blah, blah. And Abu Nabshar Kamil said, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. And he said, then why didn't you warn me? He said, I needed you to figure it out for yourself. Because if I had told you, don't do that, that's not smart, this is the way you should do it like this, you're going to be like, hey, you know what, I have an opinion too, and I have a will, and I'm also an Abuna, and right? He could have. But he learned it himself. It's a more important lesson, right? So our kids are constantly pushing. As parents, you need to be constantly pushing independence. Constantly be pushing independence. You don't want them when they're 35 saying, Mama, what kind of pants should I wear today? That's not what we want, right? We want them independent as soon as possible, every chance we get, right? Even you did this when you were teaching them how to walk, right? If I'm constantly carrying the kid as he walks, he's not going to learn how to walk, right? Eventually, what do? We let him hold one finger, and then eventually we kind of put our hand there, but we don't let them hold our hand, and we let them fall. Good, right? Because they got to an uneven surface, and you see the uneven surface, you're like, oh, he's going to fall if he gets there, and then usually the dad says, let him fall. Let him try it out. Let him figure out what it looks like. That's important, right? So letting our kids make their mistakes in front of us, and then we don't go back and attack them and say, Shuft, this is why. You have to listen to me. See what happens when you don't listen to me? I know everything. You know nothing. Not the right response. Right? Ask them, what happened? They say, oh, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I guess that happens sometimes when you do that. Like, yeah, I didn't think it would. Yeah, it does. Right? I'm so sorry. Anything I can do to help? Here's some ice cream. Right? Relation. Right? Mish, I told you, see, ha, blah. Okay, then I'm not going to go back to you. There are so many kids who won't tell their parents about mistakes because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it for half an hour. So I'm not going to tell them. You know how many kids don't tell their parents things? It's shocking. Right? And it happened when they were 2. Because the kid showed them a little, the stupid thing they did in school, like the butterfly that looks ugly. Right? And instead of you looking at the butterfly, oh, it's so nice. You're like, okay, this is terrible. Why would you, who would do something like this? Or the kid wants to tell you the dumb story over and over again. Listen to the dumb story. Right? Sometimes the kid shows you a video on TikTok, some funny video of someone, getting a pie in their face or someone falling. Right? And some parents, instead of watching the video, they go, why are you on TikTok? Why aren't you studying? This thing is going to ruin your brain. And Mishana, 1,000 times, don't be on TikTok. This thing is from China. It's corrupting our phones. Right? And you go off and the kid's looking at you like, it's just a funny video of a cat. Right? And you ruined the chance to have that moment. Laugh at the funny video. Send them a funny video of a cat. Relationship. Instead, you went off into a lecture about how TikTok is destroying you and you're ruining your time and you don't ever study and how come you waste all your time? Didn't I tell you to do something? And the kid goes, okay, so I'm not going to show you any more videos. I'm still going to watch them. I'm just not going to show you because you're crazy. That's the end of it. Right? Focus on the relationship. Watch the videos. Laugh. Let them think you respect their stupid opinions. Right? It's okay. Pretend. Right? Engage. Right? Because this is what Jesus did with us. Right? He goes to the disciples and he asks them, how shall we feed all these people? Why is he asking a bunch of humans that question? And then Andrew comes up with the worst answer in the history of answers. We have a kid's lunch. And we talk about a stupid answer. And then Jesus goes, okay, Habibi, that's a great answer. Let's use your answer. The other disciples had good answers. Send them away. We need this amount of money. Andrew's like, I got a bar here for 5,000 people. And he goes, okay, let's do that. Right? So you see this engagement, listening, respecting, looking for their advice. And then the last thing is support is unwavering. Now that doesn't mean when they do something wrong, I say it's right. That's just dumb. But I support them no matter what. I am, take your son's name, Gregory. I am Team Gregory. I'm on his team. And he has to know I'm on his team. Because a lot of times, the kids think you're not on their team. You're against them. You know how many kids tell me their parents are against them? And I'm like, I don't think your parents are against you. I think they love you very, very much, and they would do anything for you. And they're like, no, they're out to get me. And their love is conditional. What do you mean? Well, whenever I do something they like, they are very happy and they give me stuff. And if I do something they don't like, they take things away from me. I'm like, isn't that just punishment? And they're like, not the way they do it. And you hear things like, I won't support you in college unless you go to this school or get this degree. It's conditional. Supporting someone, giving them money is love. It's how they see it, at least. Now, you think you're guiding them to... Yeah. It's crushing. And so dad loves me if I get the right degree. Conditional love. So we have to be very, very careful of conditional love. Again, that's not saying if you're doing something wrong, I say that is right. But I'm on your team. And I see past your sins. I see you. Just like Christ sees me. He doesn't say what I'm doing is right, but he still loves me unconditionally. See the difference? So the kids need to know, my parents are on my team. If I have a bad day at school, if something's a problem, they're the first people I go to because they're always going to support me. Right? And very slowly they're going to point out, maybe you could have said this different. Or maybe after you get lots of support. One of the things I do with my kids is whenever they ask me anything, Dad, can I do blah, blah? First word out of my mouth, sure. First word. No matter what they said. Can I set myself on fire? Sure. Then I wait a few seconds. I say, is that going to hurt? I'm just asking. Right? And then, because once you say sure, you disarm them. Right? Now they're, okay, this is, the first word out of your mouth, are you friend or foe? Are you on my side or against me? So if the first word is sure, okay, friend. And now I'm going to ask some questions. Right? Well, what kind of gasoline are you going to use? And do you need a match? And is it going to hurt? Do you think you'll have marks afterwards? And when they realize that you're just engaging with them, they'll actually often reverse themselves, right? You ask them a few questions like, oh, you want to go there? Oh, with that kid? Yeah, okay, sure. Hey, isn't that the kid that beat you up last time? Isn't that the kid that drinks all the time? Yeah. Is that a good environment? Whatever you think, Habibi. And then that's it. And then they'll say, yeah, you're right, Dad, I won't go. But if I'm like, you're not going, and I'm not going to allow you, and I'm going to take the car keys and blah, 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 I'm going to find a way to go right around you, just like that. And I have a phone with 10,000 apps, most of which you don't know about, that can bypass you in a second. I'll tell you a story. One time my daughter was like 13, 14, and she pissed me off. And so I took her phone. Give me your phone. So I took her phone. And this is before the updated app where you could see the messages when they pop up, even if you didn't recognize the face. So I could read her messages, right? So, of course, I'm a jerk, so I start reading her messages, right? So her phone's on my desk, and I took her phone maybe 2 minutes earlier, and then a message pops up from one of her friends. I read it. It says, I know you just got your phone taken away, so let's switch to Google Misharifi. 2 minutes. She had bypassed me. I walk back. I go, here's your phone. And I just left, right? This is not working. So the kids know how to beat you. They're going to beat you, right? So the key is you develop the relationship so that when the problems come, you can talk through. Okay. I have like 60 more slides. So you just you do this. أول ما عايزين نخلص ونروح ننام. Okay. This is a good Instagram. I won't show it. It's okay. So how do we handle the things our kids are seeing in school? Listen calmly and don't get angry. This is number 1, 2, and 3 advice. No matter what your kid says, no matter what they say, you don't get angry. That's very important. You let them know it's okay to talk to me. Right? When your kid calls and says, I've been in a car accident, the first word is, how's the car? Wrong answer. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Do you need anything? And she says, well, I think the car is, and you say, I don't care about the car. Right? And you show up and there's no yelling. There's a big hug. Right? You don't get angry. Because once you get angry, you close the door on communication. Validate their feelings. I understand why you're feeling that way. And explain to them why they're feeling that way. So then, because there's a very common thing in psychology that no one listens unless they think you get them. You know, many times somebody will give a talk to youth. And the youth will just say, yeah, I don't even know why that guy, someone will say something to somebody, and the youth will say, I don't even know why he said that to me. That guy doesn't even know me. And I'd be like, well, but the advice was good. Wasn't it good advice? He goes, yeah, he doesn't even know me. Well, yani, he doesn't know you. But I won't accept it because you don't know me. So once I feel like you know me and you see me and you understand me, I'll listen. But until I get that, so it's very good to repeat back to the child what they're feeling. St. John Chrysostom says, no matter how just your words may be, you ruin everything when you speak with anger. Point out the positives. Help them see it from the point of view of a loving God. I can tell you the story of St. Silouan. It's a long story. I'll skip it. Sorry. Next, judgmental experiences and shame-based messaging in the church. This is an icon I have in my house at my door as I walk in. I love this icon. So, does anyone know what this icon means? So who's the guy on your left? That's Jesus. Very good. It's easy. What is in his halo? What does that mean? What does that say? That's the ego eimi. That means I am. So that's what they put there. So what's he doing? What's Jesus doing? He's knocking on the door, like it says in the book of Revelation. I stand at the door and knock and ask you if you want to have supper. And if you do, let me in. I'll have supper with you. So he's knocking. Who's the guy on the right? That's us. And what's the problem with the guy on the right? What's he doing? What does he feel? He feels shame. And so what's he not doing? He's not opening the door. So he actually won't let Christ in because he's too ashamed. And this is very common among our youth. Nowadays, there is so much sexual impurity, so much drugs and alcohol and all of the things that make the parents go crazy, that the kids are so shameful that they're scared to let God in. And they're scared to let you in. And so we have to be very careful with any messaging that could be shame-based. But again, that doesn't mean we say what's wrong is right. But we have to let him know that when Christ comes in, he's not going to attack this person. He's not going to judge this person. He's going to love this person. So he doesn't want to let him in because he's scared of what Jesus is going to say to him. How could you do that? Didn't I tell you 1,000,000 times? Why would you think this is a good idea? What's wrong with you? And if he imagines that's what Jesus is going to say, or his mom or dad, he's not going to open the door. But if he knows Jesus is going to come in with some comforting words and make him feel hopeful, not that he didn't make a mistake. He knows he made a mistake. Kids know when they make mistakes. You don't have to tell them 8 times. They know. But if you come in and you're trying to mitigate their mistake, you make them feel better about it. Make them feel hopeful. Tell them, yeah, I made a mistake like that once too when I was young. And it also crushed me. Let them know you're a human and they're human and respect their dignity. It makes a very big difference. Then they'll open the door when Christ or you comes in knocking. Elder Porphyrio says, let us stretch out to him and approach him as a friend. Do we fall? Do we sin? With familiarity, love, and trust, let us run to him. Not with fear that he will punish us, but with the confidence which we deserve from the sense of being with a friend. So that applies to both God and, in our case, parents. Because as parents, we become the image of God to little kids. They learn about who God is from us. Not because we force them to go to lessons or Sunday school or hymn class and force them to do things. No, no, no. They're learning about God from my tenderness, from my compassion, from my mercy. Then they'll know who God is. And sometimes when people have a very negative image of God, it turns out they have just a very negative image of their dad. And they're talking about how God is. And, one time I called this girl who's actually getting a degree in psychology, and I said, that doesn't sound, she's like, the church is this and the church is that. I said, that doesn't sound like the church, that sounds like your dad. And she just stopped and had this mind-blowing moment and goes, oh my God, that's exactly who I'm imagining when I say the church. It's my dad. I said, yeah, your dad's a nice guy, he's not perfect. And I wouldn't base Jesus on your dad. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, as Abuna pointed out, atheistic children often aren't just, agnostic. They're not just like, oh, I don't know if there's God, I don't like it. They hate God. When you talk to an atheist, they're usually angry. And when you start poking, you realize the reason why they're angry isn't because I just don't believe in God. No, I hate him because I had a pastor once that did this to me, or I had a servant once that did this to me, or my parents were Christians and they did this to me. Right? So there's usually a reason. I guess I can stop. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know. How much longer do I have? Okay. I have 9. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just tell me no when we stop. I get paid by the hour. You know that. My speaking fee is only for this amount. Okay. I'll have you talk to my agent. Okay. Absence of relatable mentors and examples of Christ in the lives of youth. This is an important one because there's a dual problem here. So I want you all to think about when you were young, the one person at church who loved to see you. Right? There's always this one uncle or tant or teta or giddu, right? Who, when they saw you, their face lit up and they gave you a big hug. Could have been a servant. And they just wanted to know about your day and tell me about your week. And they truly, truly loved you. And church was almost worth going just so I could see that one person and get that one hug and see that one smile. This is very important for the kids. And it's dually important if you are that relatable mentor. If you are that image of Christ, right? That they know every time they come to you, they're going to get a hug and a smile instead of a booze, right? A frown, and because of all the cares of work and whatever it is. And so one of the biggest complaints the youth have is they just want to see Christ. Abuna Bishoy Kamil, the saint Abuna Bishoy Kamil, had this wonderful saying. He said, people don't need to hear about Christ anymore. They've heard enough. They need to see him in our lives and our actions. So when I said this is about the parents, I don't mean it's, again, about doing things. It's about being. Let them see Christ in you. And then they're not going to go anywhere. I mean, they may rebel when they're teenagers. That's fine. All kids rebel. But then they'll come back long term. And sometimes as parents, we choose the short term over the long term. Right? Always play the long game. Play the relationship game. You don't care what they're like when they're 20. They're probably going to be, messed up. You care what they're like when they're 40. Right? That's what you're aiming for. Aim for 40, not 20. I can force a 15-year-old to go to church. I can make him dress as a deacon. I can make him be the best deacon. I can beat him if he's not there early. I can win short term. Like my son and Lent. I could win. I could have made him eat those food. Right? And I would have won. But then I would have lost for the next 30 years. Pick the long game. Right? And the long game is always, the reason Christ's message resonates is because it's filled with the long game. It's filled with relationship. It's filled with obedience and mercy and forgiveness and all the good things that people just say, that's the right thing. That's the way we should be. So be those things to your kids, right? And they'll learn from you. Yes. That's a very good question. And actually, sorry. The question is, how do I overcome the anxiety and the fear with my kids? That's a very good question. And so I'm just going to go off to another topic now for 5 minutes. So, Yani, forgive me. So one of the most powerful emotions that we have is fear. And fear is dangerous. You know, when you read about, when you hear these horrible things, like there was a fire in a stadium, and no one died from the fire, but 50 people got trampled trying to go out the door. And you think, can someone really step on another human being as they're screaming until they're killed? Yeah, because they're scared. Fear makes us do horrible things. And if, you know, and I've never checked this myself, but the biblical people tell us that the most repeated command in the gospel is do not fear. In fact, it's said 365 times. I never counted, but that's what Google says. So that means that's the message of Christ. Do not fear. Which means every time I see fear, I know it's what? It's not from God. Right? In fact, when you read the Bustan, the Paradise of the Fathers, many times Satan will appear to a monk as a snake, as a crocodile, as a army, make sounds, and you're like, what are you doing? He just wants to scare the monk, which is just kind of weird. Like, you want to scare him? That's it? And St. Anthony says in his book, in his life, he says, when the devil can't stop you from doing good, he turns to another way. He turns to fear. And when he makes you afraid, you take your eyes off Christ and you look at the fear. And that's very dangerous. Fear does not parent. Fear is the worst motivation to parent. And unfortunately, most of our motivations when we say and do things is a fear. If I tell him this, I see Kinisa. If I tell him this, he's going to do drugs. If I do this, he's going to end up with the wrong person. If I say let, and then all of a sudden, the reaction is crazy, right? I've seen dads do crazy things when a son picks up something pink. And he's 3, right? And the dad goes nuts. And I'm like, what? And he's like, well, what if he becomes gay? Right? And his reaction is just over the top. The reason it's over the top is because it's driven by fear. He isn't looking at picking a pink thing. He's looking at what if he's gay? How's am I going to look? Blah, 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 all the thing. And all of a sudden, that fear drives an overwhelming reaction. And the kid's just looking at you like, what is? And if you look at much of our life, it's very fear-based. Even, you know, people all the time, even in church, which is the love of Christ, is like, am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to say that? Can I do this? Can I touch this? Can I stand here? How many days do I have to wait? How many hours is it? Can I drink water? Can I like, slow down. Like, where's all this fear coming from, right? So fear makes very bad decisions, and it doesn't create relationships, right? And if even if our relationship with God is fear-based, it's a problem, right? If I go up to you and I hold up a knife, and I say, you have to obey me or I'm going to stab you. And I say, okay, how long are you going to stab me for? I'm going to stab you forever. Eternity, stabbing. Oh, okay. Are you going to obey me? Yeah, I'll obey you. Are you going to fear me? Yeah, I fear you. Now I'm saying, now love me. I'm not going to love you. Like, I'm going to obey. I don't want to get stabbed into eternity. I'm not going to love you. This isn't a love relationship, right? So we have to realize that as parents, we can't fall into this trap because this works. You hold up a knife, it works great when they're 11 and 13 and 14. And then they're 16 and 17, and then this doesn't work. You know? So just realize that every time I have a thought of fear, you know, again, there's a difference between safety. I don't want my kid running out into the street. That's obviously, don't be dumb either. But But that anxiety, that fear, that I can't sleep at night, what if this is always from the devil. God doesn't treat us like that. Thoughts of fear don't come from him. They come from the evil one. And that, unfortunately, is what drives a lot of parenting. And it's not good. That's why the overreaction, the anxiety, the anger, the crazy. Okay, any other questions or comments? I can continue. Yes. Oh, I didn't get that. 5 minutes? Okay. Oh yeah, this is fun. So now, those are kids. Now we're going to get to teenagers. So after decades of struggle and effort with your kids, you changed their diapers, you took them to soccer, you took them to piano, you took them to swimming, you took them to msharif. You made lots of sacrifice. You poured out your love without hesitation, anything they wanted. Your teen looks at you and says, I will not reciprocate your love. That's going to happen. It sucks. First reaction, anger, sadness, guilt. What did I do wrong? Why didn't I raise them? Why doesn't he care about me? Why doesn't he love me back? I loved him for 17 years, gezma, and he does not love me back. And of course, this is just the story of the prodigal son. After years of being in his father's house, the son looks at him and says, I wish you were dead. Give me half the money. Is it going to happen to you? Yeah, probably. It's not pleasant, just FYI, but it happens. And the question is, how do we react? First thing is, when my son does it to me, I should think to myself, is this what I do to God? And then I know how God feels when I reject his love the way I do. And the second is, how am I going to react when he comes back? Because all the kids come back. By the way, why did the prodigal son come back? Yeah, he didn't have food. But then it said something. It said, when he remembered his father's house. He remembered the love in his father's house. He remembered even the servants had enough to eat in his father's house. He remembered the feeling of his father's house. That's what brings people back. So if there's peace and love in that house, when things go bad and I mess up and I get drunk and I do whatever, which will happen, at least my father's house is a place of love. I'll come back there. So keep your house to be that place. Okay. What saves and makes for good children is the life of their parents in the home. This is the part you're not going to like. Generally, the parents are to blame for the bad behavior of the children. And sorry, this is a saint who said this, Mishana. So I'm reading it. And their behavior is not improved by reprimands, disciplining, or strictness. So when you tighten on the kids, the behavior doesn't get better. If the parents do not pursue a life of holiness, and if they do not engage in spiritual struggle themselves, they make great mistakes and transmit the faults they have within them to their kids. And this is always the beauty, right? Whenever you see your kid do something you do, or say something back to you that you say, and you're like, crap, that's me. I taught that to my kid. They're that mirror, right? And it just sucks. And you realize the only thing that's going to fix the kid, you can't yell at the kid for saying what you said, obviously. Some parents do. Good luck. The smart parent says, I got to fix that, don't I? All right? So this is about you and your spiritual life. It's all about your spiritual life. That should be your focus as the parent. Be better, and it's very hard to do, and struggle, and the kids will absorb that struggle and that love and that betterness. You want to make your kids better? Be better. You want to make your kids love? Be loving. Be merciful. Be forgiving. I'll tell you just a small example is, I only have stories of my kids, but every time I hear something fall or crash or break in my house, which, happens, first words out of my mouth every time is, are you okay? That's the first thing I say. Not, what did you do? What did you do is attacking, is condemning. It's automatically saying, you made a mistake, you messed up. Obviously, someone made a mistake. Vases don't fall. something happened bad. I know that. But I'm not going to start with, what did you do? Because the first answer is what? Nothing. So now I taught him to lie. Because if he doesn't lie, I'm going to attack him. I'm going to say, why did you do that? I told you not to touch the vase. So he has to lie. So I'm teaching him to lie. I'm encouraging him to lie. I'm making him lie. So the first thing I say is are you okay? Is everyone okay? And it's so pleasant to me now when I hear something fall and I hear one of my kids say, are you okay? Because they got that from me. And that took a lot of work, because I can assure you my mom and dad did not ask me if I was okay. Yeah, first thing was the Gezma came out, and just before we even assessed what's happening, let me have my Gezma in my hand just ready, just in case I can't hit you right away, I can throw it, right? That was the first answer. So it took me a long time to undo the trauma. And this is real. Intergenerational trauma is something we all have to undo. And at some point you have to work on, I said to myself I would not do what my parent did. And am I going to stick to that or not? And there were times, and I'm not joking here, where something would happen. I would have a reaction, and I would say to myself, what would my parent do? And I reverse it and say, I will not do that. And I do the exact opposite. Right? So we have to work on those reactions, because the kids pick that up from us. That's what they're going to learn from us. The solution is to be found through the sanctification of the parents. Become saints, and you will have no problems with your children. The sanctity of the parents releases the children from their problems. Okay, I'll just read you a quote from, this is a really good website, by the way. It's called Access. It's got something, it's a Christian group, and they basically do like they have something called Culture Translator. It's an email that comes out like once or twice a week, and it's got really good Christian articles on it, but what it does is it tells you what's happening in society, and then it translates it for you. Like this person, some media guy just said this, or this is the new buzzword that kids are saying, or this is the new app that whatever. And it gives you insight into your kids' lives. And I love reading it. I've had many inspirations and examples and things to talk about. Even you can bring it up with your kids and say, hey, is it true that, blah, blah, blah did blah, blah, blah? And they're like, hey, how did you know about that? And all of a sudden you're relatable, okay? You understand their world, and you say, why did he do that? And you're having a discussion with your kid about their world. And that's very important. So this Access website's really good. But here's the thing, here's what he says. He says, the good news is that among all possible influences, parents exert far and away the greatest influence on their children's religious outcomes. Stated differently, the bad news is that nearly all human responsibility for the religious trajectory of our children's lives falls on the parents' shoulders. The empirical evidence is clear. In almost every case, no other institution or program comes close to shaping youth religiously as their parents do. Not religious congregations, youth groups, faith-based schools, missions and service trips, summer camps, Sunday school, youth ministries, or anything else. Those influences can reinforce the influence of parents, but almost never do they surpass or override it. So it all comes down to you guys. And I love this quote. He says, when you see the devil at the throat of your child, instead of becoming angry with your offspring for going astray, speak to God about it. Whatever you'd have said to the child because they'd react badly given their character, tell it to God. Get down on your knees, and by God's grace, your words will be passed on to the child. Elder Porphyrios is very big on this, where he very mystically believes that the spirit of the parent gets passed on to the child. The love of the parent gets passed on to the child. The words of prayer of the parent get passed on to the child. He's a big fan of tell God, and God will tell your child. Okay, so there's lots of quotes from Elder Porphyrios. I'll read them until you're all tired, which is like half an hour ago. He says, pray, and when you have to, speak to your child with love. Did you guys see that? Pray, and when you have to, speak. Which is first? Which is foremost? And even to the point of, and if you don't have to, don't speak. Believe me, we speak way too much. The kids pick up on so much more. In fact, usually, and if you guys have soon will figure this out, they're not listening to you anyway. Right? You ask them, what did I say? They're like, yeah, I just, once you started talking, I just, right? And so the less you say, the more you're listened to. Does that make sense? Right? And moms always complain about this to their husbands, right? The moms are always like, he never listens to me, right? And the dad, he listens to you, right? And because the dad doesn't speak much. So every time he speaks, they're like, wow, dad's going to talk. That's amazing. What does dad have to say? And he's usually not very smart, but at least he said something. Okay. I'm kidding. All right. Lots of prayer and few words. Lots of prayer and few words for everyone. We mustn't, and this is important, we mustn't become an annoyance. Don't annoy your kids, but rather pray secretly and then speak. And God will let us know in our hearts whether the others have accepted what we have said. Because if we speak, we become an annoyance and make others react or even infuriate them. This is why it is better to speak mystically to the heart of others through secret prayer rather than to their ears. And I highly recommend you try this. I could share a story, but I won't. I'll stop. Okay, last thing, I'll just kind of... Superficial relationship within the church and emphasis on appearances. Focus on what matters, right? Focus on, St. James says, confess your sins to one another. Focus on the opening of ourselves. And so much of the time, especially culturally, we're kind of taught to keep the problems of the home secret, keep the fights secret. Don't tell anyone else what's going on with us. Which is understandable and fine, because it can be embarrassing. But then the emphasis on appearances and saying, we have to look good as a family. And then we say this to the girls, Ashan haddi gawizik, right? So someone will marry you. We can't disgrace the name of the family, otherwise you won't get married. And then you're inserting in their heads this very superficial thing. Church is a place where I come to pretend. Right? I come and I dress one way for 2 hours, and then I dress some different way the other 6.5 days of the week. Church is where you pretend. Got it? We pretend at church. We fake it at church. Lie at church. Don't let anyone know your sin at church. Whereas, church is the hospital, right? I mean, church is a place where I come together as a community, the koinonia. Right? I come together as a group of brothers, as believers in Christ, where we support one another, carry the cross with one another, help one another, listen to one another, be vulnerable with one another. And this is why, in my opinion, sometimes you find that college kids will be very close with their roommate at college, like their American roommate. And they'll say, my friends at college know everything about me. Well, what about your Coptic friends? Oh, I don't tell them anything. Why not? Because they can tell their mom. And once they tell their mom tells Earth. So what happens is I have to be very wary of the Coptic people, right? I have to lie to my Coptic friends because they're the ones who can bust me. My American friends, I'm very close with them. They know everything about me. Right? And then it creates very shallow relationships. So you have a youth group, you've been together for 15 years, but I don't trust anyone in that youth group. I don't share things about me with the youth group because they're the ones who are, and they're all gossips, right? And so it creates superficial relationships. So instead of my relationships at church being the deepest relationships where I'm exposed and people expose themselves to me and I know them and they know me and our hearts are one and we don't judge and we just love the other person, instead, it's this place where I go and I'm fake and I pretend and they pretend and we all, how was your week? Oh, it's good. How was yours? Good. Nobody had a good week. We all had a lousy week, right? And we're all telling each other, oh, good. How are you doing? Good. Yeah, great. Bye. Right? And then I go out, and I go out to the boxing match and I get crushed again for the rest of the week and I've lied to everyone. So don't encourage that with your children, And I know it's scary, like there's some parents that will tell their kids, don't post on Instagram. Why? Because someone from church can see it. So who are you scared of? Are you scared of church? You're scared of the Christians? You're scared of the body and blood of Christ, the people who are your body and united with you. Those are the people you fear. And then we can pass that on to the kids. And then the kids have very shallow relationships at church because I don't want to, and the parents tell them, don't talk to your Coptic friends, don't tell them things. They'll talk to their mom. I know her mom's a gossip, and it's mess. Excessive appearance, what will people say? A mechanical church attendance. Some parents just tell their kids, just come. I don't care if you pray. I don't care what you do. Just come. I don't care if you go to the club on Saturday night, just dress deacon on Sunday. Judgment of others based on hair, earrings, tattoo, clothing. When the kids hear you judging other kids, they said that, can you believe her? She came in with that dress. I can't believe that. And her blue hair. And they hear you say those things. They know they're not safe either. And now they know what the other parents are going to say about them. Shaming other people for their sins. So that, this again is a call by the Quran to shame poorly dressed women, right? I think sometimes we inherit this in the church. When some woman comes in, we deem her inappropriate. It's my responsibility in front of God to protect the house of God and to tell her she's bad and wrong. And crossing legs in church, this is a big one. This is a cultural thing. It is not a religious thing. So don't push it. Okay. I have lots to... Okay. Right, that's what I said. And the result of toxic sin, when the sin becomes shameful, you lose hope. And this is what happened with Judas. Right? And I'm not saying, it's suicidal. But I'm saying the kids just stop coming to church. Because they know the church is the place of the judgment. The church is the place where people make you feel bad. If everyone at church knew what I did, what would they say about me? So they have to hide. What if one of my friends said something to their moms? I think that guy's mom looked at me funny. Maybe she knows. Right? And all of a sudden the church becomes a scary place. And for a lot of kids, the church is a scary place. Right? Full of pitfalls and eyes and looks and words. Okay. Our role as parents isn't to focus exclusively on preventing sin. Of course, we don't want our kids to sin, but they're gonna. Can we agree? But showing our kids that there is hope, forgiveness, acceptance, and a path forward regardless. Right? So, of course, we don't want them to mess up, especially if it's dangerous or catastrophic or big. But let them know when they're little that the end of sin isn't shame and I can't believe you did that and punishment. The end of sin is a path forward, hope. Let's have it, let's talk about it. Now give me a hug. Now let's go out for ice cream. Right? That starts when they're 3 and 4, not when they're 14. It's too late when they're 14. Yeah, what Abuna is saying is that during summer camp, they emphasize never be scared of Abuna, because a lot of times the parents say, "Lama Abuna finds out, hayaz'al minnik." And yeah, Abuna is the one who's saying, "Never be scared of me," and that's such an important lesson. Never be scared of the church. Never be scared of the priest. Never be scared of the parents. Fear isn't from God, but it's a really good weapon we use against each other. Right? This is how we convince ourselves to go to war, right? You just say, I'm not going to kill an innocent boy. I'm going to kill a Nazi. So you call him a Nazi, right? You make somebody, and so you have this fear-based messaging, right? Be afraid of Abuna, be afraid of the church, be afraid of God, be afraid of me. And then in the end, you're sick of being afraid. And then you just stop coming. Nice quote. What you do speaks so loud that I cannot hear what you say. Right? This quote was said to me when we were doing our Lamaze classes before we had our first child. Someone said that, and it really stuck with me. What you say speaks so loud, I cannot hear what you say. So say less, as the young people say now. Say less. Right? Just focus on showing them that compassion, showing them God, showing them love, showing them who Christ is through you. And that doesn't force them to go to things. That's very different. Can I stop now? Anybody have any questions or comments? Yes? It's never fair for me to say that. Yeah, I know. All right, I'll tell you a story. So one Thanksgiving, we went to my wife's sister house, and we were playing Risk. And it was a very heated game of Risk. And I don't know if you guys know how to play Risk, but, you know, like the offensive people roll their dice, and the defensive people roll their dice, and whoever gets the higher number wins, okay? So, so my younger son, you know, so they rolled, and my younger son won. Okay, he won the thing, and he crushed my older son. And we've been playing Risk for years, okay? And we always roll the dice, whatever. The defense goes first, and then the offense, okay? And then after my son lost, he goes, no, that's not the rules. The rules, I'm supposed to roll first. And then he rolls. And I'm like, well, first of all, we've always played like this. Second of all, it doesn't matter who rolls the dice first. You know that, right? It's just, you know, probability. And third of all, we can change, but you just lost. So the reason you're saying that is because you lost. And the thing is, my son had never cheated like that before. And it really bothered me. And I'm like, and he's like, no, I'm not going to play. I'm like, I just look at him, he's like 14. I'm like, you're cheating. This is not okay. You know, and I was really upset. He's like, I'm not playing. And he like wanted to mess up the board and all this other stuff, right? You know, kids go. And I was very upset. And I tried several times to like do the logic I just did and talk about probability and whatever. And he's like, no, I don't care. That's the rules. He shows me the rule book on the thing. I'm like, I don't care about the rule book. That's what we've done, and we can change, but whatever. So then I kind of, you know, game just kind of ends. And so I storm off into the kitchen, and I just look up and I say, all right, God, you teach him, because I obviously failed. And I had a lot of peace, and I went back. I said, okay, let's do it your way. He's like, okay, good. So he proceeds, my older son proceeds to roll 5 ones in a row, which if you do the math on that is 1/6 raised to the 5th power, which is a very, very small number. My middle son proceeds to roll 5 sixes in a row. 1 6, 1 6, 1 6, 1 6, until my older son's army is decimated. He loses the whole game. And I just kind of smiled. I'm like, wow, that was fast. And then the game's over. And my older son looks at me and goes, that's because I was trying to cheat, huh? And I said, probably. And that was it. So this is, I had that story when we were reading about talk less and talk to God more. I realized that I thought I could logic my way and beat my son at this. Like say, you know what, this is wrong, this is why, this is probability, this is ridiculous. And it went nowhere. And then I decided, you know, I'll try this prayer thing. And then it was good. So that's why I said you should try it. Any other questions I didn't want to answer? Yes? I don't, but you do, yes, obviously. That's a very good question. So her question was, we all make mistakes with our kids, and how can we be reassured that it's never too late to fix them? That's the question. The answer is, it is never too late to fix them. And the model we have is really the Christian life. The saints we have, and oops, the kids are here. This talk is over. They have entered the building. Habibi, just like the life with Christ, it's never too late. Right? No such thing as repentance is too late. Never. The door's always open. And for a child, it's obviously better when they're young. But believe me, an apology to a child at any age is very therapeutic, right? And simply saying, yeah, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. And starting, especially as kids become teenagers, our instinct is, we're in control, right? We've been in control. We've controlled what they ate, when they ate, what they wore, what color their cup was. We've controlled everything of their life up until these points, and now they want control, and you're like, whoa. And it's difficult to give that up, right? And I think it's just very important to acknowledge that with the child and say, look, I want to start treating you more independently. I want to start treating you. You're becoming more of an adult now, and I want to treat you like that. And really mean it. Let them make their mistakes. Let them mess up. It's very hard to do as a parent because you want the best for your kids. You don't want to see them mess up. You don't want to see them doing something dumb. But let them do something dumb younger than older. Because when they do it in college, you're not there to, it's bigger ramifications usually, and you're not there to catch it. And if you haven't done it when they're younger, you haven't built the relationship of they're going to come back to me when they mess up, and I'm going to come with open arms. When they do it older, they don't go back to you. All of a sudden you find out when, you get a call from prison, right, or jail. It's like, these things happen, So hopefully you've built that you can come back to me thing. Let them make their mistakes. And then don't say, see, I told you, this is why I'm always right. Just go, oh, okay, Look, because if you keep telling your kid, don't jump off a bridge, the only thing in life they want to do is jump off a bridge, right? And all they think about is, mom's turn around, maybe I'll jump off, maybe I'll follow back, I'll jump off this way, right? And you're like, don't, you know what you got to do? You say, okay, Habibi, jump off the bridge. He's going to walk up and go, oh, if I jump off, I'm going to die. You go, yeah, probably. That's going to hurt really bad. But if you want to jump, jump. That's the free will God gives us. Now, if he tries, you got to grab him. But, if they're older, say, okay, this is what happens. See it. And exposing them in a way, is good. I remember we took our kids to Vegas, just like 6 months ago or something, because I wanted to take them to Vegas. I didn't want Vegas to be this mysterious, place. And, I made a point, when we'd walk through the casino and all those people on the slot machines, I would say, I want you to look at their faces on the slot machines and see if you can see one of them smiling. Find one that's happy. And they're all just miserable. I say, even when they win, watch them when they win. Right? So, you want to be there with them, without the, see, you messed up, blah, blah, that kind of thing. It's never too late, is the answer. These are your kids. My kids never talked in church. I'm just kidding.
I actually started focus when I hear kids talking in the church. I focus more. That's sweet. Yeah, it's always, I remember at the beginning when we started very first liturgy here in the church, first feast. Ambassador Rabin was praying with us, and there was kids making some noises. It's late and it's liturgy feast. It's very tough on the parents. So Sayyidina بيقول لي, are you thinking of making a cry room? So Sayyidina, you asked me that this place should bring the young professionals back and the youth. This is what you described as a mission, and in the ordination there is a hemorrhage and we need to stop it. If I start doing this, it's going to be, as soon as they come in, they'll make noise so they can go to the cry room and play louder. So I advise that we don't. And thank God that Sayyidina even says, no, let the kids play. This is in the church. And I think the presence of the church in the United States is going to have a very good effect on the church. That things we grow up with as a respect for the church, not that the parents are not respecting, like the more they swallow the liturgy by osmosis, yishrab, to drink it in, to absorb it in, the better it becomes. So, and all of the parents respect the church very much. They're not coming like hey, let me make sound or make noise. This is just they do their best to keep them. So, the noise in the church is something now that the kids are here. Like, it actually motivates the person to pray. It's very like instead of them at home and coming late. It's very very encouraging to hear them that they came to the church and participate. So it started having the opposite effect to some extent. So any other questions? Okay, we'll take this as the last one because the kids are finished.
You spoke about everything. What about discipline? When can we resort to discipline, in your opinion?
So the question is, I spoke about everything, but I didn't speak about discipline. So when can you resort to discipline? I would say that it isn't an either or. So it isn't I resort to discipline. It's sort of like is God loving or judgmental or merciful? You know, and the answer is both all the time, right? So I wouldn't say, you know, when you say resort to discipline, what does that mean? You should be disciplining all the time, and it's just the way in which you discipline. If the discipline, if your relationship with your child is relational, is loving, they won't want to disappoint you. Discipline can be, okay, and then turn around and walk away. And that is far worse than hitting or anything else, right? In fact, you know, I know of a child who said, I wish my dad had just gotten mad. If he had gotten mad once, that would have changed the outcome of my life, but he didn't. And that's what brought him back. So, the spanking and the stuff we grew up with Egypt, you know, I'm shocked, I have to say, that in America, sometimes I see the parents, like I used to take my daughter out camping with this daddy-daughter camping thing. And these girls, the way they talk to their dads, they're like, shut up, Dad, you're an idiot. And all the girls laugh. And I'm looking at them, and I look at my daughter, don't you ever talk to me like that. Like, don't learn from these little brats, you know. And the dads say, you know, I'm like, that isn't love, letting your daughter speak to you like that. So, you know, I mean, I don't want you to get the wrong impression. You know, if you ask my kids, they'll tell you, oh yeah, my dad's a disciplinarian. Like, so I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both all the time. Yeah, it's the methodology, exactly. Right? It's the approach of how to discipline, right? And making sure love, it's not, you know, it's scary to say, when do I go to discipline? That means love is out the door. No, love has to be there, because otherwise, then it's revenge. You did this, I'm going to get you back, right? And once the kid thinks it's revenge, and punishment always has to be preventative of the next step, and it always has to be with love. And they have to feel your love even as you punish them, right? So it isn't one or the other, both all the time, right? Just the approach, the discipline can be, okay, if that's how you want to, if that's, you know.
The body language and the face. Pope Shenouda told the priest and Karma, may God rest his pure soul, when you're angry, stand in front of the mirror and see how you look to the child. It's a very scary thing. And of course, this is a big deal because it has to always feel loved. But the kids, when they see our facial expression very angry, it's engraved in their mind. So you can be firm, say this is wrong, we cannot do this, we're going actually not to go out because of what happened. But the facial expressions are not with anger. Yeah, it's not scary, but it's firm. You made a message, but it doesn't have to be like the whole ambiance or incubation into like a very angry situation. So firmness can be done with a very straight face without a very angry face. Okay. Thank you, Deacon Mark, very much. It's a great lesson for myself to learn the discipline and enjoy, and I hope enjoy your children. This is, in fact, I'll say something in 1 minute. My dad said it to me. He said, it changed my whole approach to raise you guys up. My father, may God rest his soul, a long time ago, because when he was doing his grad school that was in Czechoslovakia, he said, my advisor was sitting with me. His 5 or 10 years old daughter whispered in his ear. He left everything and stood and said, my daughter has something to do, I have to leave. And he said, since I heard this, I said I have to treat my children as my friends, not somebody I discipline. And that's what I told actually to my daughters. I don't want to discipline. Why? If you are friends, you know what's the right thing, you know what's the wrong thing, you know what the church does, what the church is, and you judge yourself. I don't want to this. I want friendship, and it really helped very much. That there's no, when are you coming? Whom are you with? No, they have their conscience, they have their God, they have the church, they have their father of confession. Also, I always remember I would give a sermon. If my daughter is sitting there and had just experience with them of shouting, how are they going to listen to the sermon? I have more responsibility and I'm more limited. I am more limited in this department because they will see me at church. I will talk to them at church. So I have to be aware. But please, one thing that said, my father said, I wanted to treat you like friends. And he was a general in the army. This is so he is, your children as a friend are just small. You will benefit so much from the friendship when they grow up. Let's pray. Thank you all so much. The kids are ready to be picked up. Name the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, to most glory forever. Amen. Through intercession of the Mother of God, Saint Mary, we ask, Lord, that you, as she is the Mother of God who raised Christ in his infancy and toddler and teenage period, and the love and the care she has given to him has brought him according to the flesh, a wonderful, perfect man. We ask, Lord, that she prays on behalf of all of the moms and the dads and help all her children. Through her intercession, hear us when we call upon you. Thankfully, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is. The love of God the Father, the grace only begotten Son, Lord God and Savior Jesus Christ, the fellowship and the communion of the Spirit be with you all. Go in peace, and the peace of God which surpasses all understanding may protect your hearts and minds in Christ. Go in peace, and the peace of God be with you all. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Deacon Mark, again. This will be the beginning of a series because there are lots of slides we haven't finished. Somebody's phone is here, was recording. Okay, nice. Thank you, Matt and Maria, for jumping in and organizing this whole day today. Now, you did a lot of things. Okay. Cosmetic.